Right, well, don't even know where to begin, do you? Celtic nil, Hearts 2 is probably a good place to start. This feels like COVID times. This I feel like I'm coming on here to do a match reaction without much of a structure or plan of where I'm going. There is far too much ground to cover with so little time to cover it in. So I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me. It's as simple as that. I'm going to try and look at things as level-headed as you can at times like this. But Celtic are in serious trouble. And there's no denying that. And I will be the first to hold my hands up and say I've probably been quite guilty and naive in regard to the decline of the club over the past couple of months. The decline of the performances of what we've been seeing. I've been probably one of the more hopeful supporters, and especially one of the biggest supporters of Brendan Rodgers, the manager. So I've probably been quite naive and quite susceptible to this happening. You know, I've kind of quietly accepted it as it's moved on. But the alarm bells have been ringing, and today feels like a culmination of everything that's been going wrong. And listen, I think there is many factors to put to blame at the minute. One of them has to be what's going on with the managerial situation in terms of the team that's getting played, the squad's getting selected. The manager has got to come out today. He's got to take a responsibility for what's happened. There's no denying that. But I think there is a number of factors. I don't think it's as simple as blaming him or blaming the board or blaming the players. I think there's a hell of a lot that goes into it, but there is no denying that after today, questions must be asked. And I'm once again, I hold my hands up. You can call me naive. You can call me a little bit guilty of maybe standing by my man too much here, but you know, I'm not as far down the line yet to suggest it's time for the manager to go or that we should sack him. I don't even think he would anyway. I don't think we would sack him, but I'm not at that point yet. But what I am saying is he has to have a serious sit down, I think, about what's going on, because what we've seen today, unacceptable. There is no sugarcoating that. You thought Kilmarnock was bad. Well, God, this today was worse. If you didn't catch the game, or if you're not a Celtic supporter and you're tuning in to hear my opinions on it, you thought Kelly was bad, you thought the result there was bad. This trumps it. This is the culmination of a number of weeks now which have been Celtic hobbling along. We had a point in the league table where we were 8 points clear, and we could have potentially gone on to extend that gap with some good results. Who knows? Now we're at a point where if Rangers win their games in hand, and if Rangers beat us in the derby, which is looking even more likely as the weeks go on, Rangers could be the team that go 4 points clear at the top of the Premiership table. It's just a little bit mind-boggling how it's escalated so quickly, but there is serious problems right now, and it's not looking good. The toxicity, the animosity, the anger, the general sort of horrid feeling is returning inside the stadium that should have been there a few years ago when the fans were locked out the stadium. Feels like we are now entering that same sort of situation where anger is being directed at every possible angle of the club, whether it be boardroom level, the dugout, the pitch. Fans aren't happy. It's building, and you know, listen, I think sometimes it gets greatly exaggerated. You know, I listen to the Super Scoreboard on the way up the road and people are saying there's fighting in the stands and all this. I don't know, you could tell me if you've seen it in your section. There was no fighting wherever I was sitting, or nowhere near me, right? But, you know, that general feeling, though, of just sheer negativity is returning to the grounds very quickly. A lot of things lack logic right now at Celtic, and a lot of it begins with what the manager's been doing over the past couple of weeks. Now, before I even get into talking about the performance, we've got to talk about the team sheet, we've got to talk about the tactics, and we've got to talk about everything that comes into play when a game goes this way. Before we talk about the actual 90 minutes itself, what is going on? And this is where, you know, a level of blame can be shared out equally. We'll come on to talking about why in a moment, but the signings that we made in the summer as the weeks progressed just look to make less and less sense. Gustav Lagerbielke during the week, not even last week, scored a winning goal in a European game and he can't even make the bench today. Players like Odin Thiago Holm can't get a sniff. Kwon is brought out from God knows where and God knows why to be picked for the bench today. And players are just being picked. It's like a lucky dip to see who makes the squad. It seems like we've got a general 11 that we like to build around, and then beyond that, for the other 6 or 7, or it's 9 places in the bench nowadays, the other 7 or 9 places, I feel like there's a tombola at Lennoxtown to see who's making the team. That does come back to the manager. That's something where he needs to take whole responsibility. And the problem is, for as much as injuries have been an issue this season for Celtic, listen, we had Maida and Vickers return today. Of course, they're not 100% yet. As much as injuries have been an issue, it can't always be an excuse. It can't always be a reason for us to drop points or not play well. I mean, at the end of the day, we've had these issues for years. Postecoglou worked with a lot of injury issues. You remember his first season here, we were riddled with injuries, but we managed to play some decent football. We managed to churn out results. That's not happening at the minute. And instead, we are constantly switching. Like Paulo Bernardo, another one who I just completely forgot to mention. He's apparently good enough to start every European game, it feels, and then comes off the bench against Feyenoord midweek, but now he's nowhere to be seen. It just all makes very little sense to me, and that is a manager's decision. We had a team who won a treble, and if you told me, right, if no matter who was in charge, whether it be Brendan Rodgers or any of the other managerial candidates who were considered in the summer, right, if you told me after that game against Inverness, when we won the treble back in May, June, can't remember the exact date, but you know what I'm saying. If you told me that by the end of the calendar year, these are the sort of conversations that we'd be having, it would seem so far-fetched and ridiculous to even suggest. But here we are, we're having those conversations. Somehow we have allowed a treble-winning squad to deteriorate vastly in the past couple of months, especially the last few weeks. And I'm not wanted to over-exaggerate, and I do have faith that we can still turn things round and things can change, right? But with performances like that, the faith drops every week. That's a team who won a treble. And most of the guys are still there. We lost two key players, right? Two key players from a treble-winning side. We lost Carl Starfelt, we lost Jota. Two of the main names on that side. They were starting basically week in, week out. They were a key part of what we've done, the success that we built. But you'd think that we've lost 11. You'd think that we've lost more than 11. It looks a shadow of the team we got. And I think what's the most alarming part of it is just the decline in the performances themselves. The football we're playing, it lacks such identity. It lacks, that same ferocity that we had with Ange Postecoglou. And yeah, the manager's got to take blame for that. As much as a Brendan Rodgers fanboy I am, there's no way you can sit here and say that, the football has been anywhere near the standard that we should be expecting with this group of players. Because sometimes you lose games, right? You lose games, you draw games, you drop points. It's happened with every Celtic manager since the beginning of time. Since the club was formed. Managers drop points, we lose games. But it's the manner of how we've been doing it recently. It was the manner against Kilmarnock. It was the manner against Hearts today. It was the manner against Motherwell a few weeks ago at Celtic Park as well. There seems to be no fight in the team. And when we are needing a goal, what do? We pass it side to side. We don't look as though we need a goal or points. We're pretty much happy to sit back and accept our fate. And that's what's getting on a lot of fans' nerves at the minute. It makes it very difficult to watch. It makes it even harder to accept. Brendan Rodgers is a good enough manager to sort that out. But we're not, we've not got a lot of time to sort it out. We are now staring in the face of a title race. And when I say the blame has to be shared as well, look, listen, I think that the responsibility does lie a lot with the manager today, but you've seen the chants round the ground, sack the board, Lawwell get to, ringing round the stadium with 20 minutes to go in today's game. The thoughts of Celtic fans have been made very well clear. The board are destroying this club from the inside. And it hurts to sit idly by as a Celtic supporter and see it. They have locked the most vocal element of the stadium out, the fans out. In a time like this, we're coming up for a derby when we have a tough fixture run, that doesn't help us. And I'm not just saying bring the Green Brigade back for the sake of it here, but that is self-implosion. They're causing that from the inside. Other decisions, the recruitment and all that, yeah, you can only blame it so far. You look at the tools that are getting brought on the park today. James Forrest, Alexandro Bernabe. I mean, oh my God, these are the kind of players that we're bringing on to try and win us games. The recruitment hasn't been good enough. The job that the board are doing has been so below par. It's getting really frustrating. And then obviously that kind of just sees its way into what's happening on the park, and the manager obviously struggling to deal with that, and in doing so putting himself under a bit of jeopardy in the eyes of the supporters anyway. It's all just gone a bit arse over tit at the minute, to put it quite frankly. And I don't know if January's going to sort that out. I don't have an awful lot of faith that January's going to sort that out. So I guess we just need to sit and wait and watch what goes on from here. But it is absolute madness to think that this time last week, we were still top of the league without a single loss in the league. And in that space of time, we've won our first Champions League game at Celtic Park in over 10 years. However, we've lost 2 games in the bounce. And we have opened up a world of troubles for us in the charts for this league title. We are destroying ourselves right now. And us as fans, we can't do much about it. But voice our discontent, but voice our anger. And that only gets you so far. We've seen what happened in the 2020-21 campaign. Voicing your anger, voicing your discontent does only get you so far. But they need to have a serious rethink right now at the minute. Both the manager and the board about where the direction of this club is going. We have £70 million and sitting there in the bank. They're not using it. It's not like they're doing up the stadium. It's not like they're building it. You know, we've got that complex getting built over in for Barrafield, right? Okay, fair enough. £70 million though. They're not investing it in any way, shape or form that benefits the football club. So what's the plan with it? Everybody at the club has to have a rethink at the minute. Not just the manager and the board, the players as well. Because it seems like there has been a drop-off. Some people don't look as though they're even interested in playing for the shirt at the minute. There's too many visible jerseys out there. Where do you even begin? There is just so much ground to cover. I can't even do it justice sitting here. As for the performance itself, just you don't. Once again, you don't know where to start and where to finish. There's so much going on in that park there that makes you want to scream. To be quite honest. The 2 goals, you know what makes it even more frustrating? The 2 goals that we concede today are pretty much Hearts' only 2 clear-cut chances. And I wouldn't even call them, they're not clear-cut chances. One's a free kick and one's a header from a corner kick. We concede from 2 set pieces today. And we make life so easy for teams visiting Celtic Park, or just playing us in general. It doesn't have to be at Celtic Park, it can be away from home. We make life so easy for them. What's happening with Shanklin there? Why is nobody marking him? Why are we giving him a free header? Boy, he doesn't even have to jump. And fair play, it's a good finish. It's a cracking header. Gets the power behind it, and I'll give them his due for that. But why is nobody doing better? And then the free kick. And I know this sounds so cliche to say. Everybody says it, you know what I mean? I knew it was going in. Look at Joe Hart's positioning. Oh my God. And Stephen Kingsley is a very good free kick taker. You know what I mean? And you're giving him that side of the net to shoot into. I knew it was going in. Said it as soon as he stepped up to take it. This is 2-0. And then you're 2-0 down in the first half. You've got to have a serious rethink of what's going on. And there's none of that. We had a little kind of burst of energy as soon as they scored the second, and we did try. Wasn't good enough. We had a little burst of energy in the second half where we tried to close the gap. We tried to get ourselves back in the game. It wasn't good enough. Ultimately, all of these wee bursts of energy and bursts of chances, they all resulted back to what we were doing anyway. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working at all. So many players on that part, nobody, I don't think anybody gets pass marks for me. Liam Scales was okay, but there was a couple of wee errors in there for him, but he recovered well. Scales was good. Apart from that, who gets pass marks in that park today? Everything that we try and do is ineffective. From what we try and do down the wings to what we try and do through the middle, everything's predictable and ineffective. Defenders have sussed out what we want to do. And I was hoping, maybe Dyson Maida coming back gives us a boost. Useless. Didn't do anything. So we're in a serious problem right now where I feel like we've got a group of players who are so short in confidence, so unsure in what they're doing. Their futures are in the balance in January. The perfect storm is currently underway for just implosion at the club. And yeah, it makes for some good reading for the outside and the people that don't support the club, and with some great viewing for yous. But for us as Celtic supporters, it's that kind of, the insecurities are creeping in now about what could be the next 5 or 6 months. Because if it gets worse than what it was today, boy, we are in bother. It sums up, Mikey Johnson was cheered off the park. And I don't mean good cheered off the park. When they said, coming off number 90 Mikey Johnson, a cheer was let out from the Celtic crowd. That sums it all up, where we are at the minute. The squad, yeah, we do have a fantastic 11 that should be doing better, an 11 that was responsible for a treble last season, and they've seemed to be, falling apart. Don't know what's going on. But beyond that, oh my lord, like, we're dealing with Forrest, Johnson. You could go on. I mean, you look at the bench and you're thinking to yourself, you are 2-0 down in the game. How are we going to change this? Who's going to force change from the bench? Nobody. So it's all just very up in the air. I want January to be this roaring success of signings and quality, and I'm very unsure that that's going to happen. And that's obviously concerning when you think about the fact that you want to go and win the league title, you want to try and win the Scottish Cup as well. That doesn't seem to be like it's going to be happening anytime soon at Celtic, so just strap yourselves in, have a laugh, I suppose, because that's the way that you're going to have to deal with it if you don't take it very well. Painful. When you're down 2-0 at half-time, you've got to set the team up differently. You've got to. And I think that for all that it's worth, I think that tactics just went out the window in the second half. But that's not a good thing. You know what I mean? You've got to have something. You've got to have a plan. But it's got to be a different plan. It's got to be a plan that gets you out of the problem that got you into it in the first place. You've got to have something that's a different, kind of outlet to try and score goals. And that wasn't the case. I feel like, once again, tactics went out the window. It was just, right, go for it. We need to get goals. But it didn't work. And then when the energy burned out, we were left looking hopeless. So Brendan Rodgers has got to do better. There is no denying that. But the players have got to do better as well, because I feel like there's just so many that look so lost, so out of their place. Passing isn't even good enough at the team at the minute, and that's the absolute basic. That's the bare minimum. We pass the ball. We can't do that properly. So there is a lot of problems to address, and the manager's got to sort that ASAP, because he will come under more and more scrutiny. If not, he's already coming under the scrutiny that could cost him the trust and the support of fans. If that's not already happened, it's going to happen in the coming weeks. So he needs to sort that out. He's a better manager than that. So he needs to sort that out. Right, I'm going to wrap it up there. It's one of those match reactions where you just waffle, isn't it? It's just hard to have structure. It's hard to have an actual, meaningful conversation with yourself when you're just met with disappointment on the park. It's so difficult. But listen, I've tried to cover as many angles of the game as I possibly can. So we'll be back tomorrow to discuss it more, which is just, oh God, might end it all tonight. But we'll be back tomorrow to try and discuss it in a bit more depth and a bit more actual sort of quality. But it's enough to put you to sleep. That it's enough to not even sleep. It's enough to drive you to the drink and just horrible. Right, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.